Good evening and welcome to the Kuhn Academy for this installment of AP US History, where we're not just learning history, we're making history. All right, we're going to talk about the Great Depression. This is actually going to be a couple-part video. We're going to look at the causes, followed by the effects of the Depression to kind of break things up a little bit. All right, this is mostly for those of you out in Cleveland, being a future business leader, hopefully learning how to avoid another Great Depression. All right, so a depression, by definition, this does not mean people were sad. This is kind of like Reconstruction wasn't rebuilding the South. It was changing the political and social climate of the South. And the Depression is not when people were sad. It's an economic term for when business, employment, and the stock market values declined severely. Okay, we measure these numbers in a lot of different ways. We have unemployment that we measure. Okay, we measure business through things like the GNP, GDP, okay, gross national product, gross domestic product. There's something called a consumer price index. All right, we measure that also. That tests inflation. And in the stock market, we measure through what's called the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is the average of so many stocks and their average values over the course of the day. Right. So in depression, these decline severely, usually over the course of 3 quarters. A quarter would be 3 months of the year. So basically, for 9 straight months, all these numbers would drop significantly. All right. Now, depression is part of a business cycle. Okay. The way the business cycle works is we have prosperity. Times are good. Okay, everybody's making money, numbers are going up, things are happy. All right. When those numbers fall for 2 quarters in a row, we fall into a recession. Okay, that's when unemployment goes up, the GDP falls, the Dow Jones falls, and we fall into what's called a recession. The economy's starting to go bad. Okay, if that happens for 3 straight quarters, all right, we fall into a depression. All right, we'll probably never use that term ever again because the Great Depression was so bad. We kind of associate any depression with 1932, and no politician's ever going to want to do that. So we'll probably never see a depression in our lifetime, knocking on wood. All right, and then the 4th stage is recovery, which is when times start to get better, the numbers improve, and we work our way back to prosperity. Okay, the goal of pretty much any government is when we fall to a recession to get right back to recovery and cut out this whole depression thing. But in this particular case, the Great Depression saw those numbers drop severely. All right, now what caused the depression? The obvious answer that most people are going to say is the stock market crash, but there were several other factors leading into this. So this is just a question that might be thrown at you. Notice there's only 4 choices, but pause your video, see if you can answer it. And the correct answer is high farm prices. Okay, farm prices were actually did not happen. They actually declined, which helped cause the depression because farmers could make no money. Okay, and they were basically out competing with each other. But these other 3, okay, all main causes of the depression among others. All right, before the late 1920s, what did stock prices do? All right, pause your video. And the correct answer is D. All right, they were too high for most people to afford, yet people wanted to buy this because if you bought stock and it went up in value, you made a large amount of money. Okay, I'm kind of operate under the assumption that you know what stocks are. Okay, that's really crucial to understanding the stock market crash. So Black Thursday happens in 1929. This is the end of the Roaring Twenties. All right, here you see the stock market, and 16 million shares of stock were traded in one day. The reason they were traded is because people thought the stocks were going to go down in value. They started selling. People bought them up cheap, thinking that they were going to go up again in value. When they didn't go up, they continued to sell. And over the course of the whole day, the Dow Jones and all the values of the stocks plummeted to next to nothing, where $30 billion was disappeared. You might have went to work with stock in RCA worth $10,000 and came home and that same piece of paper was worth $500. Okay, so the money just evaporated into nothing. And it would not be uncommon on Black Thursday to see people jumping out of these windows committing suicide because they did sometimes lose $10–20 million in one day. All right, most economists agree that a key cause of the depression was, and again, pause your video. And our answer here is overproduction. Okay, we had a very affluent society in the 20s that was producing a lot of things: radios, cars, farm equipment. All right, things like that. But nobody had the purchasing power to buy them. So when you can't afford to buy something you really like that high definition television, you buy it on credit. All right, so first cause of the Depression, there's going to be four in addition to the one I just gave you. First one is an uneven distribution of income. Okay, we've seen this since the Progressive Era or even the Gilded Age. All right, most Americans were considered poor. They were below what was known as the poverty line. Okay, um, which today is right around $15,000. So think of about half of our country making less than $15,000 a year. All right, as we said before, the farms were very productive. They could make a lot of things, but people did not have the purchasing power. The wages were so low that they couldn't buy these things that were being produced. So it almost worked against us to be so productive with our machinery. All right, next cause, easy credit. Okay, people had huge debts because to buy this television or this radio or this refrigerator or automobile, you would buy on the installment plan. You buy now and you pay later. Okay, when you pay later, you're paying back with interest, so that becomes very expensive, and people have to continue to make these payments, but not really have the income to do that. But it looks good because Ford is selling cars, RCA is selling radios, but the money's not there to pay for it. All right, and then to speculate on the stock market. Remember, when you speculate, you're buying something in the hopes that it will go up in value. So what people did was something called buying on margin. All right, this probably needs more time to be explained, but essentially when you buy something on margin, you buy stock from a stockbroker. All right, now you don't have the money to do that, so you have to borrow the money. All right, so when you borrow, you have to promise that you will pay back collateral in the event you don't pay the stock back. When you buy on margin, the collateral for your loan, in case you don't pay it back, is the stock itself. So you buy $10,000 worth of stock, but your only collateral is $10,000 worth of stock. Well, that's all well and good. If I don't pay you back, you, the banker, can take that stock from me. But then if it becomes worth $1,000, where's the bank get the money that it loaned you? It doesn't. And this is actually very similar to the housing crisis that we're kind of hopefully coming out of right now, but it was the same kind of thing. People borrow money, and then their house was the collateral. When they didn't pay it back, their house wasn't worth anything, and banks lost a lot of money. All right. Now you can see why people would buy on margin. All right. Look at the March of 1928. All right. Here's your share value per share of stock. This is what a stock would cost. So AT&T, telephones, brand new. All right, new in people's houses. They're going to start having dial phones. This is a new concept, new technology, kind of like the iPhone. All right, got to get on this, right? Within 6 months, look what happens. It doubles in value to $335 a share. RCA is probably the biggest one. Went from $94.50 all the way to $505 in 6 months. If you bought this RCA, so if you get that Michael J. Fox time machine and can go back in time, buy RCA in March of 1928 and sell it on September 2nd, 1928, you will make a killing. All right, but people couldn't afford $505 a share, so what did we do? We bought on margin. Yes. Okay. Third cause of the Depression, or fourth if you're counting stock market crash. To keep foreign products out of the United States, we passed something called the Hawley-Smoot Tariff. You should never forget this because you go to school on Hawley Street. What we're doing is we're making tariffs very high to protect American industry. Our industries were producing a lot. We were competing with European companies, Asian companies, so the tariffs got raised really high. The problem was the other nations retaliated, and they raised their tariffs also. So now all these products we're making here that we can't sell in the United States, we can't sell overseas either. Okay, so the imbalance of foreign trade hurt us because we couldn't export as much as we used to. All right. And then our last cause is the mechanization of American industry. Okay, we have all these new machines, new inventions, assembly lines. Okay, doing all of the work now. All right, so we had less workers. Well, less workers means less purchasing power to buy these things. Okay, that's where Henry Ford was in a way ahead of his time. Okay, so we're not able to employ people, but we're very productive. It looks like we have a great economy. We didn't. All right, so that's basically the causes of the Depression, okay, that we should be familiar with. Your book's going to mention a couple other ones, okay, farm prices, that kind of goes along with the uneven distribution of income. All right, so thank you for listening to the Kuhn Academy. Hope you're enjoying Ohio for some of you, and the rest of you, hope you're enjoying Lincoln. All right, have a great evening. Remember, we're not just learning history, we're making history.